Hello, I am here for a very impromptu Friday reads with not so great lighting, but I wanted to sort of get this out that way I can talk about sort of what I plan to read for April as well, for like a TBR kind of thing. And my initial thought is that I want to revisit a lot of writers I've read in the past because I love getting to know a second impression of a writer and really feel like I can reassess what I read by them for the first time and sort of compare the two. And initially, with writers like Meg Wolitzer and Celeste Ng, who I read second works by last year with Little Fires Everywhere and The Female Persuasion, I was largely disappointed with both of those. So I'm trying to rekindle my relationship with writers that I think I'm going to continue to read or at least develop a readership with over the years. And that was largely inspired by how 25 years ago in April, phase 1 of the apocalypse happened with my birth. And so me turning another year older, it made me want to revisit things, memories, yada yada, even more, and how I see that sort of with my relationship with writers as well. So one book I read this week was Persuasion by Jane Austen, and if you know me, you'll know that I loved Pride and Prejudice last month. So I think reading this right after Pride and Prejudice was kind of a mistake because I feel like I heard that Sense and Sensibility is the similar one in Austen's work to Pride and Prejudice, but I found Persuasion quite similar as well. I liked the characters enough in here. I think it's just where I didn't really feel like I really knew anybody as strongly as I knew characters like Mr. Darcy or Elizabeth. And by the way, I will say, that my impressions of these books that I'm going to be talking about today won't be really as in-depth. They're mainly just impressions, but I will say that I loved the character Louisa and how she climbed over this wall, I think, and then she knocks herself out cold. So yeah, even though everyone told her not to. So that's one of my favorite scenes in literature now, probably. Another book I have is Augustus by John Williams, and I read Stoner by John Williams a few years ago, and I absolutely loved it. And with this, where it's about Julius Caesar's death, and now we have Octavius, or who is later named Augustus, takes over, things occur differently, and I think I just thought with this, there would be more insight that Stoner had, or I felt like John Williams was establishing. And I think he does it here with these sort of memoir fragments because this is an epistolary format, which I haven't read since maybe The Perks of Being a Wallflower. I feel like there was something else in a letter format I've read before. But I don't know, I had higher hopes for this and I was a bit disappointed. I also read Eileen by Ottessa Moshfegh. I read My Year of Rest and Relaxation, and while I liked that book, I feel like it was sort of not like pushing to its fullest potential. I feel like now reading Eileen that this is, to me, the much stronger work because I feel like it was more bold, but bold in a different way, because in My Year of Rest and Relaxation, we had a character that was so insistent on her mental well-being and how she wanted to treat her mental health, even if it all seemed exaggerated. And Eileen is also what might feel like a very exaggerated character. But I never sympathized with her, but I did find her like revolting and gross, but I never felt she was like unrealistic, if that makes sense. And I know a lot of people talk about the ending of this book and how unrealistic it is, but given what we know about Eileen, I think it makes sense where she keeps bumping into these people that you might think when you meet someone you want to like figure out who you appreciate the most. In Eileen's case, it's who's gonna not disappoint me the most and I'll just gravitate towards them. So if you haven't read Ottessa Moshfegh, I mean, I really recommend both, but I think I would recommend Eileen more. And so I read 2 Allie Smith stuff this week. I read Hotel World and There But For The, and I think Hotel World is actually her debut, which was maybe out in like early 2000s or something, and I think it was even shortlisted for the Booker back then, or longlisted. But Allie Smith, I've read a lot of her work. I think Allie Smith is actually like my most read author, which didn't occur to me until I looked at my bookshelves, but there's something so effortlessly, her books still feel like serious, but told very playfully, which I really enjoy. I just really like that juxtaposition. And I'm realizing between reading these Witch Hotel World is about these characters that sort of interweave stories at this hotel. So as a debut novel, I thought this was fine. I think it was a good way of Smith establishing like the types of stories that she likes to tell, and to see how later in works like this, how it sort of evolves and becomes, I think, more bold. And There Before The is about this man that traps himself in a bathroom, I think, or just a room at a guest house, and which sounds so peculiar and odd. A lot of Smith's books have these odd premises, but I really liked this one. I liked it more than Hotel World, and yeah, this really stuck with me. It was much more moving than I thought it would be, and it really surprised me. But yeah, I would check this one out, and it's also a beautiful cover. But this sort of segues into what I'm reading this weekend, and I'm actually about halfway through Spring by Ali Smith, which I guess Book Depository gave me like this very obnoxiously large edition. The font size is huge, but I'm enjoying it so far. Again, I think Smith has this sort of repetition with these characters, often adults, communicating with children, and I think it's hard to write child characters without it seeming juvenile, but I think Smith does a really good job at building that relationship. And then other things I plan to read this weekend, more buddy reads with my friend Kelsey, who I've mentioned a million times on this channel, and one of those is The Pisces by Melissa Broder, and I was finally convinced to read this because I know that Britta Bowler, Eric Carl Anderson, and Matthew Sharapa, I know that they all really liked this, and for some reason it never really stood out to me, but I'm excited to dive into it. I heard that there's an emotional Tinder support group in this book, so I could use that. But anyway, with these other two, they are short stories, and Sean the Book Maniac and Doris at Aldi Books have been reading these really cute, small Faber stories, and I wanted to pick up Sally Rooney, definitely, with Mr. Salary, and also this story by Sylvia Plath. And I've read, again, with this theme here, except the Pisces, with April being my month of revisiting writers, I've read Sally Rooney before with Conversations with Friends and Normal People. I think Conversations with Friends had a lot more potential, and I would have liked that to be... I think I like Conversations with Friends better, but Normal People was definitely executed much better and was also, I think, quite good. And Conversations with Friends I thought was fine, but I think it could have used a bit of work. So I'm looking forward to reading this with Kelsey as well, both of these. And I've read The Bell Jar by Sylvia Plath a few years ago, but I definitely read it too fast because I literally can't remember anything from The Bell Jar. So I think after I read this, I'm going to read The Bell Jar again as well. And I don't have it with me. It's in my bookshelf, but I'm also reading, or revisiting this month, I plan to revisit what I'm reading right now as well, Dear Life by Alice Munro. I'm unfortunately out of Alice Munro books. I don't have any more. I've read Runaway and Dear Life already. I read both of those, and I really enjoyed them. And Dear Life, since I read it, I think, since October, has really still haunted me. So I'm trying to really understand how I feel about that book. I like the book, but there's something about Munro's stories that really stay with me. And then with Lahiri, I have read Interpreter of Maladies, which I thought was great. It's one of my favorite short story collections. And now I'm reading Unaccustomed Earth by her, which is another collection. So I'm really looking forward to reading those as well. And I think, yeah, that's everything. So thank you for watching, and please let me know how your Friday reads or weekend reads plan to go, or what you plan to read in April. And I hope you have a great weekend. I would love to hear about that too. But yeah, as always, thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.